Hi, my name is Delia Nessum. I'm the Money Miracle Worker. I'm so glad you decided to sign up and watch this video presentation. It's called the Money Map, your confidential money map. And I want you to just fill in the forms on the worksheet that I provided as we go along, and you'll see how many blocks you might have to money right now and how it can all shift. You feel, this is a preliminary process, but just that little bit of tapping we do, EFT tapping, will really start to see how it can move. You can shift whatever your belief system is. It might feel like this is how you've always been, but it can change. And if you want it to change because you want more success in your life, then you have to take action. So I hope you'll take some action at the end of this video and sign up for some coaching sessions with me. I'm really looking forward to working with you. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining me in this presentation. Today we're going to talk about your relationship with money. And I wonder, how healthy do you think your relationship really is with money? Do you feel a sense of lack? Does money make you nervous or frustrated? Does it feel like you never have enough? Well, maybe you think you have a good relationship with money and you don't quite know how to judge. So sometimes it helps to actually look at your money physically, leave it laying around, and see what kinds of emotions come up for you. How much money do you actually keep in your wallet? That says a lot too. Some people are afraid that if they put too much money in their wallets, they end up spending it all and then they're angry with themselves. So as a result, they go around in situations and they're always the ones that don't have any cash. They're always trying to maybe pay with credit cards or bum money off of friends or something because they just don't have cash in their wallet. That's not really a very good way to function, because really we need to have money around. We need to have it available to us. And if we're afraid that we're going to spend it just because it's in our wallet, that might be saying something about the way you view money, that you actually have a need to spend it just because it's there. In itself, it's like controlling you instead of you controlling the money. So that's a relationship that maybe should be looked at. Also, they're, just typically when they psychologically they put, candy and little impulse items near the checkout counter, and a lot of us fall for it. A lot of us feel that we have to buy things that look appealing, like the shiny object syndrome. So, yeah, it happens. It happens to everybody at some point, but you still want to know that you're in control of your finances. Also, how do you react when you pay bills? Do you get frustrated at how much you have to pay for certain things? Do you sort of stress out at the end of the month about how much money is left after you've paid your bills, or if you can't quite pay bills and you have to kind of pick and choose what's most important to pay? These are all indications of your relationship with money too. Then there's the restaurant shock of seeing the bill. And then knowing you have to tag on the tip, and you just think, wow, all that money and I'm going to be hungry again tomorrow. So there's all kinds of things that we can see in our day-to-day functioning that tells us a little bit about our relationship with money. And then, of course, there's credit cards and whether we have credit card debt, and how much of the credit cards you pay. That's also an interesting aspect of how we deal with money. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm so interested in this topic. My big why, because it really is a tough subject for me. I've had a lot of ups and downs with money, a lot of discomfort around it, feeling that, you know, feeling deserving or not so deserving. So I'll get into that. And I also want to talk more about the different kinds of money. There's 5 basic kinds of money that we're going to talk about in this talk. And we're going to see how there's a mind-body connection with the money. And later on we're also going to go one by one with the different kinds of money and start to see what your mind-body connection is with experiences around money, I'm sure that this will bring a lot of clarity to you. And also, because it is a very emotional topic, I'm going to use a technique called EFT, or tapping, to help release some of those uncomfortable emotions. And then finally, I'm going to talk about what I do and how I work with people. This process that we're going through today is called a money map. And it's just one of the many processes that we can work through. This is kind of an overview of how you respond to the different types of money. But once we get through that and you get a little bit of an insight about your money habits and your relationship with money, there's all kinds of processes that we can do to bring more and more clarity to whether or not you have issues with savings, whether you have debt, whether you have problems with not earning enough income, whether or not you aren't setting big enough income goals for yourself, and finally, if there may be some toxic money issues. Those are actually the 5 types of money that we're going to discuss. So now, getting back to me, I have some serious money blocks. And there could be all kinds of reasons for it. And I actually believe some of it could be tied to past lives. I'm very spiritual minded, and I know a lot of other people that are spiritual sometimes have difficulty receiving money, accepting money for what they do, because they feel like what they're doing is just so much of you have such a need to give and to share your knowledge and your information with people that you want to just give it away. You may especially I'm also a therapist, and it's hard to put a price on talk therapy. Sometimes a friend talks to you and you can be supportive and help them, and that's awesome. And as a therapist, you get paid for doing that. So that's really awesome. But sometimes it's hard to separate that, because all my clients feel like I'm a friend. So I feel like, I build a relationship, we build rapport, and I feel like I want to give it to them. I want to help them and just give away my service. So it's really difficult. Also, what's on this screen is the idea that if we had past lives, if we're spiritual people especially, that may have had multiple lifetimes in a spiritual realm of being a monk or being some kind of a religious person, there were often vows of poverty, and that attitude might stick with us from one generation, from one incarnation to another. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thought. And as I said, we also find it much easier to give than to receive. And we have these attitudes. The American culture sometimes gives us the impression that, rich people are greedy, or, you have to sell your soul to reach a point of prosperity and wealth. And it makes a good story, but it's really not true. It's pretty much a myth. There are a lot of really good-hearted, very generous people that have a lot of money, and it's not a bad thing to be wealthy. It actually can bring us a lot of happiness and really improve our life in many, many ways, and get our message out to more and more people in the world. So there's a lot of good that comes from having more money. So I work really hard at overcoming some of the blocks that I've had. Even I spent a lot of years being a stay-at-home mom and taking care of my kids, and that was a really great experience, but I didn't earn my own money at that time, and it just felt really a little bit uncomfortable being taken care of. It felt a little bit like being back in childhood and having my parents pay for everything. So there's a lot of like some subconscious attitudes and emotions that kind of get intertwined with our money. So out of the 5 kinds of money, they all have some kind of emotional component that runs through our nervous system. And in addition to that, there's things that have happened to us that caused us to say things like, because of this, this means that I'm whatever. And so we get into this habitual pattern of self-talk that kind of creates limiting beliefs, creates limiting thoughts about our worth or whatever it might be. It stays with us. And of course, a lot of times situations that have to do with money can be tied to traumas, things that felt really scary or really, as a young child, you may not have fully understood why there were so many arguments about money, or there might have been times when people broke off relationships with family members or friends that may have been caused by money issues. There's all kinds of things that affect us as kids that we don't always understand, and so it becomes some kind of a subconscious nervous system reaction. And that's where the awareness of those things can really be helpful to kind of rethink it and to change limiting beliefs into empowering beliefs. So the first type of money we're going to talk about is our savings. And I want you to take a piece of paper and just write down how much money you have in savings. And this would be money that you kind of have in your bank account that you use all the time. Not so much, money in 401ks and things like that. Although that's awesome too, to have a nice amount of money in those kinds of funds. But let's just see what we have just, at our disposal. And what kind of feelings come up when we think about how much money you have in savings. What 2 main feelings can you describe about about what you feel around your savings? What do you say to yourself about that? Now, it's typical that our savings are correlated to how safe we feel, because of course if we have a nice big savings account, it's like a security blanket. In case anything goes wrong, you have your savings and you can rely on that. But if you don't have a big savings account, you might feel a little insecure or not very safe. And you might say, this means I'm, whatever, maybe you're just a bad saver, or it means that you're a loser, or something really horrible you might be saying to yourself about the amount of savings you have. Now, the next thing we're going to do is to think about, does it make you feel triggered? Does it make you feel uncomfortable that your savings is not where you want it to be? I'm sure this is true for a lot of people, because I hear it all the time that, there's a lot of scarcity mentality and a lot of fears around how long your money might last, and if your job isn't secure, and you know, it just brings a lot of fear to a lot of people. So we're going to do some tapping to help to release some of those strong emotions. But for now, let's just look at what's coming up. If you can think of an example in your life, in your past, that you can kind of feel this emotion and recognize it as a feeling you've had before. And I want you to just kind of close your eyes and picture yourself floating back to a time when you were younger, and there was something about money that made you feel this same sense of kind of sick to your stomach feeling, possibly, or whatever the emotion might be. And how old were you when you felt this? What were the circumstances of it? By doing that, you kind of bridge this feeling that you have around your savings to a time in your life where that feeling might have actually originated. So you want to ask yourself some hard questions, because when you do, you'll get more clarity. You want to ask about how long you felt this way around your savings or around how much money you had. And really wonder, how much is it costing you to feel this way? Because if it's an uncomfortable feeling, it's probably debilitating in more ways than you really know. How much is it going to continue to cost you to not get clarity on what it is that's going on with you and your savings? Maybe you realize that you have a pretty decent income and it's not really clear why you're not saving more. You've probably been pretty hard on yourself all these years and you don't really know what you were up against. But the fact is that what happens is the emotions are actually there before the money is what it is now. In other words, you've already felt the emotional feelings around not having enough savings, not feeling secure. Maybe it's not even tied to money, but maybe there was just a feeling of not being cared for enough, or feeling a little bit neglected, or maybe your father wasn't there for you, or he wasn't providing and your mother was upset about things like that, and you just feel the emotion of it. These emotions stayed the same and the circumstances have changed, but the circumstances kind of recreate that same unsafe feelings. So the emotions were actually there first, and the lack of savings is the effect of those emotions. So just sit with that for a second. That in itself is really an interesting concept to think about. That all through life we kind of try to resolve uncomfortable, confusing emotions by kind of reenacting them in different circumstances. And yet, until we really come to terms with it, it may not get solved or resolved. So now let's look at your debt. Do you have some debt? Of course, a lot of people do. It's really easy to overspend. There's so much advertising and so much just psychological reasons why we overspend. So just think about what your feelings are about your debt, how much it is, write it down, how you feel about it, what you say to yourself about it. Just let your emotions go into that that feeling that you probably recreate whenever you think about your debt. You also feel those same uncomfortable feelings. Do you think that there might also be some historical reasons why you're in debt? That maybe in your past there was some kind of battle or betrayal? Is there something that you haven't forgiven yourself about? Or are you blaming other people for your debt in some way? Or maybe it was an accident that occurred that caused you to be hospitalized, or you have medical bills that created more debt than you would have wanted. Of course, nobody wants debt, but sometimes things are unforeseen circumstances cause us to have to spend a lot more money than we really expected to, and you sort of feel this sense of resentment about it. Or maybe you're blaming yourself and you say, this means I'm. What would you say about that? This means I'm something. So here again, there are some hard emotions to face. How long have you felt this way? How long have you had this debt? Are you embarrassed or ashamed about it? Debt can feel very shameful. And again, the same situation as we talked about with savings, you actually create debt because you already feel the shame. The shame could have come from any event in your life, especially ones that you may not have even had any fault in, but yet you feel shame. Well, the debt will go away when you let go of your own blame or your own self-incrimination about whatever it is that happened. You've probably been pretty hard on yourself about it, and maybe you didn't realize that it's an emotional process. It's not about being foolish and overspending because you really wanted something special. It's really a subconscious process. And now that you understand that, you know what you're up against. And how has feeling ashamed or feeling bad about yourself and your circumstances, how has that fixed anything? How has that helped anything? So ask yourself, have you suffered enough yet? Now we're going to do some tapping to help relieve the emotions around feeling bad about your debt. Okay, so here are the different positions for EFT tapping. I have two different setup statements. Sometimes I put my hand over the heart and just say the statement like, my savings just aren't enough. And instead of using the karate chop point where you would say, even though my savings aren't enough, I choose to love and accept myself. Other than that, the points are pretty traditional. I left out the under the arm point, which some people can put in if you want to. So you tap at the front of the eyebrow just gently, maybe 7 or 8 times, then to the side of the eye around the bone, under the eye on the bone, under the nose, the chin point right at the crack, the collarbone, and then the top of the head. I'm going to say some statements that help you get in touch with how you feel about the money, your savings, and your debt. So take a deep breath. And I want you to rate how you feel about the amount of money you have right now, whether you have a very low savings account or whether you have a big debt, or if you're just feeling uncomfortable about your money. Try to bring up that emotion as high as you can and rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 about how uncomfortable it feels, 10 being the worst and 1 being pretty good. And as we tap, I want you, at the end of the tapping, I want you to see if you've shifted much on that. So, write down your number, and that can go on that worksheet as well. Okay, so now, starting at the eyebrow, it's overwhelming. It's just overwhelming. Every part of my money mentality, I feel it. I'm feeling it. It's so heavy. All through my body. I'm so ashamed. It's so wrong. It's so embarrassing. It's so scary. All this shame in my body, all this stress in my nervous system, it's overwhelming. It's just overwhelming. No wonder why I don't spend much time on thinking about money. All this guilt. Oh, I'm such a loser. I'm a failure. I'm a failure about money. I'm so ashamed. I just need to honor that heavy feeling. This shame is stuck in my stomach like a pit. It never changes. It just feels awful. I've said this to myself 1,000,000 times. I'm such a failure. It's so shameful. It's so frustrating. It's so depressing. I'm so disappointed in myself. I should be doing better. I should know better. I should make better choices. I should be able to figure this out. And I never do. I can never get ahead. It feels so heavy. And I honor all these dark feelings I feel. I've been carrying them a long time. And maybe even my parents carried them. All these dark feelings, these shameful feelings. I've made so many mistakes. Don't I deserve to yell at myself? If anyone saw these numbers, I'd be so embarrassed, horrified, mortified. And people would see the truth about me, that I'm an idiot. I'm not strong enough. I'm missing something. People would judge me. Oh, how I judge myself. All this shame. I've been telling myself that I deserve to feel this bad. And I'm just going to honor that. I've been really hard on myself. Torturing myself, really. Don't I deserve to feel this way? Look at these numbers. I deserve to beat myself up, to judge myself harshly. I've been judging myself for years, feeling ashamed. And from that place, everything feels impossible and overwhelming. I have such strong feelings of disappointment. I've been punishing myself over and over again. And I'm open to lightening it up. All this shame in my body, all this shame about earning and spending, shame that I didn't earn enough and I literally can't win. I honor everything I'm feeling, and I'm open to having more compassion, to healing, and to seeing things in a new light. Maybe it's time to let go of some of this shame, to let go of my long history of self-punishment. Maybe it's time. I can't move forward without it, and I really do want to move forward. This anxiety in my body around money, this deep programming, this fear, the anxiety about money, it's wired into my nervous system. And the thoughts I think over and over, I totally honor them, and I'm open to healing for my best good. Okay, now the topic is your income. I want you to write down how much you earn. And as you look at that number, I want you to say to yourself, it's not enough. How true does that feel on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 meaning it is enough, 10 meaning it's not nearly enough. Now that you have that number, once again, I want you to think about the main feelings that come up for you about your income. What do you say in your head? Can you think of an event in your past or in your family's past where there might have been some kind of a financial trauma around occupations, or maybe a family member took a chance and started their own business and failed at it, or somebody really wanted to make something of themselves and really tried and worked hard at it, but it just never really took off and they felt ashamed and really discouraged. When you think about your income, what do you say about yourself? When you finish the sentence, this means I'm. So when you think about your income, I hope that you've gotten a little bit more clarity, thinking about how long it's been this way. How it's really tied into your past or your own career path and your own feelings of self-worth. Your income could have changed just from changing jobs or getting a raise or getting downsized or this or that. There's all kinds of circumstances that can change your income. But when you really think about it, a lot of it has to do with your own beliefs about yourself. And sometimes an interesting aspect of this is that if you get a job that pays you really, really well, you might find that you end up working more. Not because you really need to, but because deep down you feel like you're not worth that kind of pay. And so you actually work longer hours to create a lower pay rate. Because the more hours you work, the less actual money you make per hour. So you see how these emotional issues can really be costing you money. So now that you understand, I hope that there'll be more self-compassion, because it's not something that you're doing intentionally. There's internal dialogue that's going on, and your programming, your childhood paradigm, all kinds of circumstances that may have happened, all that plays into your current salary and your feelings of worthiness or unworthiness. I know I've had clients who felt like they had siblings that were getting all the attention and they were kind of neglected and pushed aside in a way. And, that's just a feeling, a lifelong feeling of not being as worthy. Like, what does it take? Why is my brother or sister getting all the glory and all the attention? And whenever she asks for something or he asks for something, he gets it. And when I do, I always get no. People really get scared and discouraged when they try to ask for something and they're told no by their parents. They lose their sense of self-worth. So can you see a connection there between your self-worth and your current income? Now, the next topic is about income goals. Have you ever set income goals for yourself? I'm sure if you're interested in knowing about money, there's always, all the experts say how important it is to set an income goal for yourself. It's so important to set income goals, and yet so many people don't do it. It can be really intimidating because there's all kinds of reasons that you feel like you might not reach your goals, so you kind of just ignore the idea. But when you do set a goal, it allows your subconscious mind to try to reach it. And it tells your body and your mind that you have the confidence in yourself to get there, to really do it, to allow yourself to dream of these bigger goals and to think about how it'll feel and to pretend like it's already happening, and how you're spending your money and how you're balancing your time and having a lot of freedom and, being able to do the things you want to do and really enjoying your life. It's so important to have a fulfilling life. And so many people seem to have a job that they just feel like they have to do, and they don't see any future, and they don't see any reason to look at a positive, look at an income goal, because they know that they're only going to get a 2% raise a year, and that's their lot in life, and that's all there is. But that's also a mindset that can be changed. If you start to think about it and set those goals, things can change, things can shift. You never know how money can come to you and how opportunities can show up if you open up your mind to the possibilities. So here are some things, some possibilities about why you might be afraid of success or afraid of setting income goals. Getting your hopes up and then being disappointed, feeling like if you put that pressure on yourself, it's going to make it even harder, especially if you tell other people what your goals are. And then you might start going back to that deserving aspect and wonder if you really deserve to make that much money, or how hard it might be if you have to work so many hours, so many more hours, because all those thoughts are really limiting beliefs. A lot of the richest people don't work very hard at all because they know how to leverage their time, they know how to work smart, and they don't work by the hour. They work by whatever it is that they're providing for the world. And so there's a whole different mindset to consider. And sometimes people wonder how their life will change if they make more than a certain amount of money, whether they're still going to fit in with their families or friends, or feel like they're an outsider all of a sudden. That can be another limiting belief that's subconscious that we might not even be thinking of. And finally, the last topic is toxic money. Does toxic money apply to you? Well, this is an interesting topic. It's sort of tied in with battles and feeling cheated and feeling like, you were the only one left out of some kind of a inheritance, or, maybe a group of people went into some kind of investment opportunity and somehow you were cheated out of your share. There could be a lot of resentment tied into money situations where, like I said, if you didn't feel like something was fair to you, you didn't get the money you expected and you were disappointed, angry, feeling betrayed. That's one kind of toxic money. Other types could have to do with, a divorce settlement or some kind of a ongoing money that's supposed to be paid to you, but you have to deal with certain uncomfortable situations or people that you'd rather not deal with. People may be holding something against you, and there's all these like icky feelings that you could get around those types of money, that you want it, you deserve it, it's yours, but there's a big price you have to pay. When you think about money in general, that's where your thoughts go, to these feelings of anger and blame and betrayal, and maybe blaming yourself. So I hope you've learned a few things about the power of the money map, about your savings, your debt, your income goals, and whether or not you have toxic money in your experience. This presentation has hopefully helped you to get a lot more clarity about your relationship with money. And now you have the choice about whether or not you want to work at it and change it, because you can see how much it's cost you over the years. And when you fix your relationship with money and you release the blocks and the feelings and the emotions that are associated with it, it won't just improve your money and your finances, it'll change your life for the better. So, see if what you think about these comments, whether they're true or false for you. If I don't consciously change this, it will continue. I'll continue to leave money on the table. This is bigger than money. My money is intertwined with emotions, and it's keeping me stuck. True or false? It affects other areas of my life. I experience chronic pain and worry about money. So what I recommend is to seriously challenge your uncovered beliefs about money, to start rewiring your nervous system by using tapping, preferably, or other methods, and use this customized tapping script that we've created together as my gift to you. Because when your money changes, your inner world will change and your outer world will change. You're going to start to see some really dramatic differences. So did you have any aha moments? Is there a need for more tapping? So I had a client who went through some processes with me. She was feeling like she didn't understand why her business wasn't as successful as she would have hoped. She knew she did a good job. She knew that everybody who she worked with was happy with her, but somehow she just wasn't drawing in as much business as she really hoped to have. And she always had a little bit of a nervousness around asking for her rate, her pay rate. She was an interior designer, and she felt like she had a pretty good rate of pay, but she always felt like maybe they won't want to pay this much. And she would discuss it with her husband, and she always felt insecure about asking for more money, asking for what she was really worth. And when we worked with her about some of the childhood experiences she had, she remembered an incident where her brother got something really nice as a gift that she didn't get. And she didn't understand why she didn't get it also. And so she made a decision. She decided that she wasn't worth as much. And she felt like she had to always be okay with that she had to settle for less, and she didn't want to put anybody out. And she started to realize that all through her life, she never asked for anything. She never, even when people asked her what she wanted for gifts, she said, "Oh no, I don't need anything." And she really became bad at receiving. And when she tied it back to that initial event, she realized that it was just a story and that it didn't have to affect her whole life the way it has. And she had to practice receiving more. She had to practice asking for things, like just accepting gifts and graciously thanking people for it instead of saying, "Oh no, you shouldn't have." That's something that sometimes parents teach kids, that they shouldn't receive things and that it's more polite to just, offer to give without receiving. And it's not necessarily a good way to live that way. There always should be give and take and offering and receiving. It's a cycle. It's circulation. That's what it's all about. So once we start to get more clear about the idea that we deserve and money is important to us and it's a good thing to be financially stable and to have abundance, everything can change.
Hi, thanks for watching the video. I'm really excited that you're here now at the end of the video, and I want to tell you a little bit about some of the processes that I use. What we just saw was called the money map, and that's an overview of all the kinds of different kinds of feelings you have, different emotions around money. And I hope that you continue to do the tapping that is on the worksheet and that we did on the video to help clear any kind of blocks you have around those aspects of money and all the nervous system reactions you might have to money. And so now I want to tell you that there's so many more processes that we can do to really get deep into whatever it is you've experienced. Everyone has a different path through childhood, through adulthood, and money has always been a part of our life. So sometimes we connect money with negative emotions. And so some of the processes that we're going to work on is called the earliest family paradigm. I'm going to have you go back in time and really evaluate some of the processes that occurred, some of the dynamics that occurred around money and how it affected you. There's also ideas around the downside of wealth. And then there's a problem for a lot of people about learning how to receive. That's a really big one because we were kind of all taught to be, to be generous and to be polite and to offer but not necessarily take or receive. And we have to learn that it's a cycle. You can't always give without receiving or you're going to run out. It's like your well is going to run dry. So it's important to learn how to receive. There's also sometimes there's pain involved with toxic money or any other kind of experience that had to do with, a big loss of some sort, whether it's personal relationship loss or loss of income or loss of money. There's a lot of people have a vow of invisibility where you just don't want to shine. You don't want to let your light shine through. And when you don't express yourself to the fullest, you're not going to be here to do what you were meant to do. And you'll also be pretending to be someone you're not. You just want to be your best self, your true self. The bigger the gap between who you are and who you live your life being, the more stress you have in your life. That's a really important concept. You want to be in alignment with who you were meant to be. So shining your light is a good thing. It's an important thing. And not everybody can do it, but the tapping helps to release some of the fears around being your true self. And then I want to help you learn to live bigger and to believe in yourself and to have outrageous goals. What you might think is an outrageous goal now might turn out to be something that's very doable for you. And the more you put your mindset in that idea of the sky's the limit, the closer you're going to get to being where you want to be. We are all money miracle workers. We're all miracle workers, and money is an abundance. In abundance, there's no lack. And the more we believe in ourselves and our ability to tap into that abundance, the sooner we will have it. So, and then when we are moving forward and we're maybe in our own business and we're making progress, there's always times where we kind of get a little bit nervous and we sort of sabotage or backslide somehow. So there's ways to overcome that backward spiral, and I'll help you with that as well. And sometimes we feel like that saboteur, that self-sabotage is kind of like uncontrollable. But there's some deeper understanding that we can get to about why you self-sabotage. And so those are all different processes that we can get deeper on when you work one-on-one with me.